So my name is Steve Smith. I'm the CEO of Combined Knowledge and also a Microsoft Regional Director, which sounds a lot more glamorous than it actually is. It basically means that I work very closely with Microsoft and have been doing so for many, many, many years. In fact, somewhere in the region of 25 years, I've been working with Microsoft now in the technology stack around collaboration infrastructure and various beta programs and testing programs around Microsoft. So I get involved a lot on feeding back with Microsoft the challenges that businesses are facing and how they're developing their technology, and also things that they need to think about to fix in their technology to make companies use it. Microsoft Teams is a great example of that, right? Everybody suddenly started having to work remotely very quickly, and there were a lot of features in Microsoft Teams that were being waited upon. So, Microsoft were rolling them out really quickly. So it's nice to be able to get engaged and help at that sort of high level, executive level chat. My contact details are on there, my LinkedIn stuff. I'll make sure you've got access to this at the end of this as well, so you can reach out and connect if you want to ask stuff directly with me. I know it's not on audio and I haven't got information on here, but as part of this demonstration and this discussion that I'm going to go through with you guys today, the CTO and the CEO from the technology side, the sales side of Mandarin, Florent, is also on the chat today, so he'll be there to ask questions. He's already said hello in the chat in the questions in case any of you want to ask stuff about that particular element of the demo. But I'll try and endeavour to show you as much as I can and the reason for being here. And it is important that I just highlight the fact that when we talk about skills programs and platforms and learning mechanisms and the way that we've had to adapt and change to that, and the recent few months has not only accelerated the need to bring these things together, but it's also proven to a lot of companies that what they thought they had in place ready for it just wasn't ready for the job. And so really what we've been doing at Combined Knowledge alongside the Mandarin team in the last 6-8 months is we've been striving to bring together two critical elements of change management, adoption and skills programs and build it as part of the overall solution strategy that we deliver. And when you're an education company like Combined Knowledge is, and we come back from a content and education skills platform, that's where we've from for the last 18 years now. We can only do so much in terms of content development and building that, the skills programs around content. We've never been a development company around platform, and we've always made our content available to other platforms, but we've never directly worked with the company to build it into their platform so that there's a true merger of both technologies, skills and content. And that's what we've been working with Mandarin on, is that ability to do that. And driving that adoption and skills program, certainly from a remote element, is now going to be something that's not just a temporary piece of thought process. It's going to be a long-term development piece for companies to build and integrate this into their mechanisms of adoption, user training, skills, onboarding, all this kind of thing. And in fact, I first met the guys from Mandarin a couple of years ago when Microsoft launched the ACM program here in the UK. The ACM program is the Change Management and Adoption program within Microsoft, where they invite partners that sit in that space to basically be part of a program within the UK and working with the Microsoft Change Management teams and the adoption program teams, the CSM teams. And we get to work very closely with them, with businesses that are going through these processes. And the pro-side change practitioner qualifications, for example, that people have to take qualifications for is part of this. And I think we're the only Microsoft Learning partner actually in the UK that's actually an ACM partner as well, which is quite unique for this space to be learning and change management and adoption. And so I met Mandarin as part of that program, and that started this discussion around the fact that we suddenly realized there was a synergy between the two things that we were doing. And it's really important when we talk about change management, adoption and skills that these are very different elements of the big picture, and yes, we need to consider all three. but I often go into conversations with companies that are looking at building a skills platform, and they will confuse skills with adoption. And so just to make sure that I set the scene a little bit around, where we come from for this. When we think about change management is about methodology of business culture and making the business adapt the way that they're looking to work and building a framework around those working practices and methods that are shifting in the business culture. A lot of companies, and change management became very important of late because a lot of companies have been moving from what we call legacy platforms, where we've had on-premises servers, users working in a very different way than the cloud and software as a service and all these other mechanisms and apps on phones and ways of working, and all these things are different. A lot of companies weren't necessarily designed to work that way. So change management is really important in terms of having a framework that allows that transition to take place, and everybody being taken on the journey. And having a good change management practitioner or people who understand change management as part of the adoption and that skills program and the culture change in the business is very important. But then adoption swings on the back of that, because as you start to go down this cultural change, this technology change, this user awakening of new technology and mechanisms, you've got to build that framework that then aligns to that program. And this, you'll hear these sort of terms bounding around from adoption, some stuff like, building a champions program to support the user base, building communication mechanisms and channels so that you have the ability to give users the ability to stay ahead of the game, or what's coming, or what's new, or what features have we now got available, and did you know you can do this, and hey, here's a great tip, everybody, this is something that we've realized lots of people need to know. And you might be building in-person activities like buzz days, drop-in clinics, where you might have public areas of your business, or online 1 hour clinics once a week, where people just drop in and ask questions about, I keep getting this, why does this happen, or when should I be using that, or when do I use what, and having that kind of adoption aligned to the technology that you're rolling out, and having a plan, not just a plan around it, but also actually a strategic plan. When would you want to do that? Because when we think about releasing technology, it's not just skilling people up to use the technology, it's also about making sure that the users are aware of what the technology can do and why they've got it at the right time. It's no use giving them this information 2 months before they go live, and it's no use giving it 2 months after they've already got access to it, because by then, there could already be a lot of misuse of that technology and product. A great example of that is what's happened in the last few months, where companies who have not been ready for the remote working have had no choice but to throw things like Microsoft Teams out into the user force, and hundreds and hundreds of users suddenly having a technology where they're just like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And they're very briefly brought up to speed to use it for meetings and stuff. But unbeknown to the business, these users have slowly but surely been going ahead and building all sorts of sprawl and uncontrolled and non-managed and non-governed elements that is going to need to be fixed at some point. And so that's going to have to be brought back in when everything starts to calm down. Great example of this, a friend of mine I noticed on Facebook last night, she works in a childcare area, very vulnerable kids as well, and who have a lot of technical issues is the last thing they're trying to figure out for these kids. But she posted on the thing, she said, if I get one more link for a Zoom or a team or a whatever, and this and that, I'm going to go mad. And she was just like overwhelmed with all these communication links that were coming in from different departments, government sectors and people. And it's interesting because, we always assume you know what to do with it. And then in the final piece of this alignment is the skills program. Building that skills program is critical to the long-term success for people to continue to have those skills, especially with the ways that we're working today and the different environments that we work in and the different tools that we're using, like mobile phones, tablets and desktops, and building a program around not just what you're using now. It could also be features that are slowly rolling out over time, and also people that have just joined the company who need an onboarding skills program to map to the way we're working. So these are different skills mechanisms that we haven't always had to deal with necessarily, because we've had a very different legacy fixed environment. It's now become a lot more fluid and agile. So skills programs are really key to align to today's technology and ways of working. And I think the last few months have kind of brought that into the fore. And of course, finally, the key part about all of this is measurement. You know, being able to measure this and report back on it in the right way and in the right context, so that we know that what we're implementing is actually having results, but also the usage is there. And so when we think about what we're talking about today, this is where we come from. This is the background to where we've been working for many, many years and trying to help solve a lot of those issues. And so some common challenges we find around all of that is that obviously technology is updating at a rapid pace. So, you know, Microsoft are roughly bringing out 300 to 400 new features every month across their cloud stack. Of course, most users don't see that many. Most users might get 10 or 15 new features, and some of those might be quite small in effect, and some of them might have quite large effect on the users in using a certain piece of software like Teams or Yammer or Skype or SharePoint, depending on what tools they're using. So again, depending on what technologies we're using, there could be users affected more often by these updates just rolling out. So how are we going to support that and sustain it? And so therefore users end up getting confused. So they've got all these different apps in Office 365, and the company's just thrown Teams at them, but actually in Office 365, they click on this app launcher and they get 20 more apps. What are they for? When should I use them? I have no idea what is better than what. I've got tasks in Outlook and I've got this to-do app here. What do they do? How do they work? Which one should I be using? This is very common right now, that we're finding a lot of users are suffering from that kind of not sure. And the other thing is, of course, and we find this still a lot in a lot of businesses today, especially those that are coming from a very legacy platform today into the sort of modern cloud era, which could be, say, public sector, some council elements, anything that's been very static in the way they've worked for a long time. But not every user is as IT savvy as people think. There's a lot of assumptions that everybody just gets how to use technology, and we're finding actually that's not the case. So we have to think about this from the skills integration piece. And ways of working have changed, as we've said. You know, the ability for, I mean, I've noticed myself that I work on my phone a lot more today than I have done in the last 5 years. The last 12 months, I've probably flipped to using my phone as a device of communication and collaboration with work than I've done for a long time. And also outside of work. You know, I belong to a lot of, when I say outside of work, I mean outside my group of people within CK. You know, I belong to a lot of Microsoft teams that belong to a lot of different businesses, and I can easily jump in and out of collaboration with those guys. And that's kind of crept in a lot in the last 12 months. But then also, that's great, but on the flip side of that, we end up with people who don't have the right skills and knowledge of those platforms starting to create what we call sprawl. So this is when we might find that somebody's been given access to, say, Microsoft Teams or Yammer or SharePoint. There's no governance in place, and before you know it, we've suddenly got all of these new elements being created and duplication and things with the same name or similar name, and people are no longer sure where they're meant to go to put what, which is kind of an issue we've had historically with things like file shares. And so without that sort of knowledge and control, governance and skills behind it, and things like champions programs to support it, that's where we're starting to notice that this new tech is great, but if we just leave it all open and let everybody just crack on without any real knowledge, then it becomes a bigger problem than we've had historically. And another thing that I have noticed, which has really slowed some companies down in adopting the new technology, is their internal teams that are maybe working with the business to try and implement these frameworks around the culture change, adoption, and the skills programs, they're not necessarily fully ramped up and understanding it. So there's a skills program issue with the project team and their experience of the technology as well. So we've got to make sure that the teams that are going to be involved in implementing these features are also skilled up. So we have to think about skills platforms and transfer of knowledge in many different ways. So you need to think of it as a modular mechanism. And so we kind of have this little jigsaw puzzle just to kind of prove this point. Because to successfully drive all of these elements, it's not just about building training content or running classroom training or online training or throwing out some videos here and there. It's not just releasing some quick, how-to guides or something. It's about a combination of many different things that we've just spoke about, on top of the fact that it's aligned to what the business is trying to achieve. And that could involve somebody being said, oh, look, we're going to use Microsoft Teams. Okay, that's great. But what about all these other apps? Oh, yeah, I never thought about that. We really should explain to you what Office 365 is. Okay, so now I know what Office 365 is. When should I use what when I'm doing this particular project work, working in this particular field for our company? And so that now requires some custom content to help people understand the process behind all of these modules. And we find that it's when we discuss with companies building a proper skills platform or a proper adoption mechanism and building that framework, you need to think of all of these moving pieces as part of the jigsaw puzzle that you've got to build. And what we've tried to do with Mandarin, and one of the reasons that we liked working with Mandarin when we first got introduced to them, was they actually had a platform that enabled us to put a lot of the things that we do around this adoption framework into a platform that allows skills, content, measurement as part of the other pieces that we were putting together. So it complements it. And that's kind of where we're trying to move, is down this more digital skills route, not just classroom and custom training route. Not to say that they're not important. Being able to do custom training sessions, whether they're online or in person or a mixture of two, and obviously we can't do in person at the minute, so it is all online, is a key part of the integrated solution. So we want to make sure that if we're building training content, that we can push it out in as many different ways to the business. And if that includes building custom modules, custom training specifically for that company, we want to be able to do that. And maybe the company's already got some custom training that they want to bring into the platform. Totally possible. Also, custom themes. A lot of companies would like to brand the videos with their own corporate banner. Totally possible, as I'll show you in a minute. And another area that we find key when we talk to customers who are looking for a skills program to buy into is they don't want users logging out and having to log in as a different user account. Having a different license for that and a different license for this, and then people are trying to manage all of that. So again, we wanted to make sure that when we built this training platform, that you could sign in with your 365 account and that you could integrate that seamlessly with your existing accounts, and then the users are licensed as soon as they drop into that for the skills, the training that is aligned to that platform. So having this integrated solution of training, but then having the piece of the adoption around communication, being able to push out comms and build templates that have a notification of, hey, look, let's see what's new. Oh, and by the way, there's a training session that we're going to run as a webinar. Sign in for that. And here's a quick FAQ setup that we're going to run for comms out into, did you know you could do this? Oh, and if you didn't, here's a set of courses or a learning pathway that you can go and follow to help you with that. And a great example of that would have been recently when people were suddenly going to, say, Teams for doing meetings, and they'd never used Teams before. So they weren't fully aware of some of the things that they could do to enhance that meeting experience. That could have been done through a comms template that then sent the users to a quick 10-15 minute training video on those steps to make the most of the platform. And of course, what comes with that is gamification and learning at your own pace. In other words, we know for a fact through the change management and the sort of the process around how to engage users and get them to learn more often revolves around if I know I'm going to be rewarded for it, if I see some kind of recognition that I've been through this process, that means something, even if it's just a badge or maybe, for example, you've reached this point of you've got a bronze star, well done. But you know you can get to silver if you go and learn these other things and learn a bit more about that product. Oh, okay, great. And that, even though they've done the core lesson that you've pushed out through your communication, that second element of then saying, but now there's more, and you can actually get a silver badge if you do that. We found this, the ability to integrate this within the skills platform as a key element of this. And that piece around personal persona, profiling of my users, training all of the users in different elements of the products, and being able to build controlled push, here you go, this is what we want you to learn, measure that they've done that, but then also have the ability for them to go off and do more was a key factor in our design. And at the end of the day, we want to be able to keep 100% of the users trained up, no matter where they are and what devices they're on. And that's what we've brought together for this. So if I move across, I'll just quickly now move across, and I want to show you some of these things actually in action. So if I go into here, and so now I'm going to look at two elements of the platform that we were talking about. And don't forget, if you've got any questions about this, please do ask in the question and the chat. So so I've logged into my learning skills page, and this is my Office 365 account, so I've not had to re-log in as anybody else. This is my personal page as well for my company. So you know, you would have your own brand, your own logos on here. So think of it as your corporate academy page. And this is all running in Azure in the back end using CDNs. And CDNs basically mean that wherever you are in the world, everything is coming to you from your local data center. So you can have for some of you that might be, you know, Europe-wide or global potentially, whatever you deploy, the nearest data center that the videos are streaming from will be where yours come from. So that means there's very a low latency of content coming to you. And you can see here that it knows who I am. So because it knows who I am, it knows what content is available to me. It can show me courses that I might have participated in. It can show me different learning paths that are available. I can also share content and link it to other people and just basically tag it and say, hey, you know, you might find this interesting. And if they go and then follow it on, then that ranking will start to go up. So this might be useful for champions, for example, who are pushing learning paths or content specifically at users, and they want them to be tagged or get an email that says, I know you're asking for this the other day, have a look at this. So that's somebody sharing the content and building that community around it. And you can also see here that I've got some badges. So you know, points means prizes, right? And we can see that I've got a gold, I've got a silver, and I've got a bronze badge, and I've got some points here. But what's also interesting is it's got this sort of recommendation index here. Now, what this is all about is behind the scenes, there's a leveraging here of the AI stack within Microsoft Azure, which is saying the more you do as a user, the more we see you following courses and learning paths, the more we're going to get an idea of what we think you should be learning. And we'll actually start to then push content at the users as a recommended for you learning pathway. So it's not only just about champions giving pathways or learning and development managers building pathways and targeting users using their profile, which you can do with this platform. It's also about AI helping the users to progress further in self-knowledge. And we're finding that if you're going to drive self-learning, you've got to push people in areas that they're showing a natural tendency to want to learn about. And then As we scroll down in our personal profile, we can see courses, learning paths, and tutorials, depending on what we want to communicate, such as a Q&A or a quick tips, for something that we're pushing out. Hey, did you know you could do this, and have a quick how-to guide. We've got courses which are individual courses. So we've got most recent, recommended for you, most viewed, depending on which way we want to look at it. And depending on which one you select, changes the courses that are available. So obviously at the minute, Microsoft Teams is the most viewed because everybody's using Teams. So I can go and view that course, and simply by clicking on this button, from a measurement perspective, doesn't really mean anything, because as we all know from a learning platform, what we like to see is have people actually watch the videos and have these users gone through the different lesson plans. So this platform can totally give measurements and reports and exportable reports on the back of this. And then as a user start to go in, we can see that the Microsoft Teams content is now 2 hours, well, just under 3 hours of content. There's 40 videos. I can like it and share it with other people. And I can go through the different tutorials independently of a learning pathway. So this is not somebody saying, we want you to watch these 10 videos on Teams, Office 365. This is basically a user being able to go and learn a course. If I wanted to build targeted onboarding content, then I can build these learning pathways and add whichever courses I want into a learning pathway, and then push that at the user profiles. And then any of those profile users, for example, in the marketing team, sales team, new starter, whatever, will get those pathways assigned to them when they sign in. So let's say, for example, I wanted to learn Office 365 chat. So I go into the different videos for chat, and all of the individual videos form part of that course structure. So in order for me to start earning badges, I can't just watch the first video. Badges are based on a percentage tier of how much you've actually watched of the course. So to get a bronze, you might set it to 50%, silver 75, and a gold 100. So as I play these videos, and these are, so the videos that are playing now are the combined knowledge videos. So these are our content that we create in our green screen, keeping these up to date all the time, which is critical, right? Because if we're going to do training videos around the latest technology, then you would want to make sure that next time a user comes to watch this video and it's been updated by Microsoft, that pretty darn quickly it's updated in your training site. So we endeavor to keep the content always up to date, and that's why everything points to a single source of the truth in terms of video from our side. So it's everybody looks at the same video to make sure it's always consistent. And the users can not only flick around the video, they can look at demos. It's full 1080p capable, which means people can full screen it and look at the demos nice and cleanly. But we've also got transcripting built in, so they can actually see the text base of the conversation, and then even search through the transcript, which therefore enables you to obviously search for videos with a certain information of that training video based on a certain topic. So they might be searching, for example, had a meeting invite in Outlook, and it will show content or the parts of the video at that point that talk about that. So we have all these kind of really rich integrated ways that gets the user to really get engaged with the video and the content. And one of the things that we found when we started doing feedback with companies and users on what was one of the most relevant things for them around the training content in video format, where they're self-learning, is that they wanted to feel that they were still being taught. And just having a video with nothing on it, or some sort of cartoon graphic, that's fine for maybe a 30-second video. But when you're trying to teach people a full lesson plan, having somebody as if they were watching them in a room is much more engaging, and actually makes them want to carry on and listen to the story. And the presenters that we use in our videos are all combined knowledge trainers. So they teach and write the content that they're delivering in the videos. So it's a very engaged and powerful message, but also it's from experience, because they've been out working with companies and delivering this throughout the year. So it's based on real world knowledge that they're passing on to the users around how to use the technology. And so if I just go back to Steve's lesson plans, for example, we know that Steve, in this particular instance, had got some badges, so he'd been through some proper learning pathways and gained some skills. And a key part of the learning pathways is that as a business, we can build and customize them. So for example, here you can see under the learning pathways, I've been assigned several key ones that they want me to learn. And a good example of that as a new starter or an onboarding person might be getting started with Office 365. And that might be your first thing, which is, introducing me to all these elements. I really like that. So I can obviously like it, and that will be added to the social element of building that awareness. But then I've also got some other sort of more specialist ones that have been targeted to me because of my job role. So we can see here that I've got the Office 365 data expert, which could be a combination of courses that have been assigned to me by the learning and development team, and it might be part of my review. So again, we wanted to make sure that when we build this skills platform and content integration, that when we as CK are building, say, Power BI or Power Apps or Power Automate courses to teach people live, we wanted to be able to take that into the digital mechanism. And then from the digital side, we can then split that into individual components within a learning pathway that we could then target at users and say, you've got past this, you've done that, we've noticed you're doing a lot more of this work, you're moving into that project team, we think that your knowledge of this would really help you. So as part of your review process, and we're going to measure you on this, we'd like to get you learning some more elements beyond Teams and SharePoint into the data platform. So that's where these learning pathways become really powerful, because it allows the L&D people or the adoption team to push that mechanism and get users using that next step up. And all of these can be measured, right? But also they can be customized. So if I go back into the next tab, which is the admin side. So imagine if you're the L&D team, the comms team, the team that's actually getting all the content together. The admin side of this, which obviously you've got to sign in with your admin account, depending on who you are. This is where we can see all of the different elements of both measurement and creation of all of that content. So we've got a little talk to me chat. So, having a nice Insta chat that feeds back to your champions to be able to engage immediately. Very powerful, right? It's a bit like the support on the bank system or whatever. You'd be amazed how many users just simply see that. Oh yeah, I'm trying to find this. Can you help me? And what we can see here is we can see statistics of recent activity. So we can say there's 135 views recently, 55 views of certain date timeframes, new registrations on the system, people that have been onboarded. We could see, for example, in the last few days, the growth of users or months around activity. And we can see things like the most used courses as well. And we can export all of this content, put it into say, graphs and charts, so that we can track it by people, technology, courses. And that measurement is, from a long-term strategy, is key. And one of the things we find, CK has got two elements of the content. We can push content directly into Office 365. So, for example, if I was trying to get people to adopt Teams, and I'm in Microsoft Teams, and I'm in a project team, and somebody says, every time we come to this project team, we always need to know how to do this, and we can't always remember. It would be really nice if we could have some training in the team. Well, that's possible, because the same videos that we've got in the Mandarin platform in Daili, we've got the same stuff here, injectable into Teams. So here's a Teams training video playing within Teams tab from the same source of the video that's going into the learning platform. So again, really nice correlation between the latest videos being shown to the user, but in different contexts. If I wanted to give somebody a learning pathway, an onboarding program, a skills program, I wouldn't be doing it this way, because this is not measuring, this is not creating the review process, this is not giving me the statistical analysis of which videos they viewed and when they viewed them. This is just simply saying, you are here, here's some help because you're here. So from a user adoption perspective, this is powerful, great, but that's only part of the solution. You know, from a skills perspective, we need this bit. And that is the bit where the L&D teams often come to us and say, Training Plus, great, integrated with all these apps and stuff, brilliant. We want to measure it. Right, this is how you do that second piece of the skills program. And from the platform side, we can do not just building skills programs, but we can also build templates around communication. So if I want to build an email campaign, for example, and create a campaign that gets pushed out to the users in the system, then I can build that in this platform itself. If I want to build custom learning pathways on the back of that communication or target people to those learning pathways, I can either edit existing ones, or I can go in and build new learning pathways with different content in it. So here's an example of a learning pathway, and within here we've got 4 different modules. We've got getting started with Office 365, we've got how to use Delve, how to use your calendar, and how to use Teams. So this custom learning pathway is a quick ramp up. Now, imagine those of you that have quickly got your users onto Teams lately and had to quickly ramp up people on how to use Teams, but also we needed them to quickly learn Office 365. That wasn't always possible. And tools like this, allowing us to put our content that we've built aside a proper skills platform, it really makes it a nice combination. And we don't just have to have learning pathways, we can obviously create individual courses, and also on the back of that we can build other resources and elements like the gamification badges, and align them all together for what element of all of these determines success and encouragement and engagement. And so you can see here that we've got these badge settings for progressive learning, and what do you have to do to be able to get certain badges, certain completion of courses. We can also tag people with gamification as well. And then on the back of that, we can do things like quizzes and tutorial modules. So let's say, for example, you want to start pushing out a learning pathway where on the back of that pathway you want to potentially issue out badges based on successive quiz knowledge. So you can enable quizzes so that you can then push reinforced learning. If you're sure you've understood this, and I guess ultimately you could then build, if you wanted to, use badges a bit like certification at that point, right? And all of this is built in. And this, when we started working with the Delete platform, this is what we really liked about it. And the reason that we were really encouraged by the integration of the two was, for us, it answered a lot of questions that people had around that measurement and confirmation of the adoption actually working through skills. And when we start thinking of that reporting and measurement, out the box, there are a lot of inbuilt reports that you can then customize as well, if you so wish. And you can actually choose which ones you want to be on your core reporting of your skills program. So as you can see here, there's an awful lot of built-in templates. And obviously on the back of those templates, we can then, for example, get reports on learning pathways with views. And it depends what element we want to start digging into that determines which bits start to then show up in our reports. And all of this can be exported as well. So you can just bang it out into an Excel spreadsheet and then start obviously using that as part of your review process if you wanted to. And the thing that as well that was really important for us was when we started working with a lot of customers that were looking at using measurement versus skills and learning and in-place learning, was the concept of what we call a learning management platform, so LMS for short. And the problem was, not a lot of companies don't have LMS systems, So a learning management platform is obviously designed to, from the ground up, as obviously this throw videos in, build a class, push it at users and measure it. But learning management systems as platforms are very expensive, we found. I mean, you could be paying minimum $10 a user a month just for the platform. And then you've got to buy content on top of that. As much as we wanted to support that, and our videos are SCORM compatible, so they can go into LMS systems if companies already have those. We've seen a lot of companies that have been looking at introducing digital skills programs that don't have a learning platform in place, and they couldn't afford one if they wanted one, or they were trying to move away from them due to their cost. And one of the reasons why we really like working with the DALI platform was it basically gave pretty much the same capabilities of the LMS systems from the skills program perspective, but at a much, much lower cost. So with the content and the DALI platform combined, I mean, you're still looking at less than, I'm trying to think what the price per user per month actually works out to be now I'm thinking about it. Less than $5 a user a month. So it's well less than half of what the standard LMS systems would be without content. So it's designed at a very attractive price ratio, and the more users you've got, the cheaper it gets as well, because it's just a scalable pricing model. And so you get the reporting, the quizzes, you get the ability to build custom pathways, courses. You can import your own videos if you've already got some that you want to build on top of our content as well on top of that. And you build your own comms mechanisms to align to your adoption and your change management process. And all combined, this really builds an attractive solution to go forward. Works in conjunction, as I said before, if you then want to start using those videos. So as part of the pricing model for us, if you buy into Training Plus, it doesn't matter whether you're using it in the Office 365 apps directly, or whether you're using it in the DALI learning platform, you're licensed for both. There's no difference. You don't suddenly have to get a hidden cost that says, oh, well, that's going to be a bit extra. And we fully support helping you get all this set up. And if you're interested in being able to set this up as a platform and have a go at it for 45 days with the content, the pathways, and have full access to this, to have a good, really get it, have a look and get some feedback, please do let us know, because we'll definitely help you in setting that up if you want to. So that's pretty much it from my perspective. It's 4:45. I hope you found that interesting and useful. If anybody's got any questions, please do ask in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. And Florent's here as well, so from the platform side, so I think he's going to be spotting any questions that are in there. If any of you out there that are listening have already got Training Plus as a license, then you'd only have to add the license for the DALI platform on top of this. You won't be paying for Training Plus again, just so you know. So, oh, Florent's saying he's here, but you can't see any questions. There was one question, Florent, which was just added about multi-language. Is multi-language translation supported? So in the videos, no. In the captioning, it's possible, but in the videos, no, because the videos, unfortunately, Microsoft, there is no auto video, obviously convert, but certainly in text captioning, there is multilingual capabilities. Yes, so we call them the subtitles, but yes, captioning can be. And I mean, we do have some videos that are in other content. So there is some French content, for example. So there is content in other languages. It depends which content you specifically want in video format to support that. But yes, certainly the captioning is the key to this at the minute, because the Azure stack allows that to happen. If you've seen it in things like PowerPoint and stuff, it can happen on the fly, right? Just switch it, which is pretty clever stuff. But yes, if you'd like any more information, folks, please do contact us. Details are on the screen as well. Somebody's asked a question, is it available now? Absolutely. Yep, we are ready to go. So we've been working on this for a long time, getting it ready, platform's ready, content's ready, integrated, so we are ready to go. So yes, Simon, if you want more information, please feel free to contact us. And we'll be happy to set you up with a trial, have a go at it. No other questions at the minute. We made sure there was enough time for this at the end, just in case people wanted to see more stuff or just see any other information. But hopefully that enabled you to have a good overview of what the platform was doing and where we were sitting. And at the end of the day, like I say, you know, don't try and confuse skills programs with change management programs and adoption programs. They're all important part of this digital transformation landscape, the modern workplace, but they are very much having to be attacked in different elements of the big framework. And if you don't have that framework, if you haven't got that long-term approach, contact us. We actually have a framework document around this whole process from start to finish to fit in the bits that you might be missing. So if you haven't actually looked at an overall strategy and have just been picking up pieces, but you'd like to have an idea of what a framework looks like, please do contact us. Our framework's about 22 pages, which just goes down end-to-end change management to skills programs, training, development, etc. So feel free to contact us for that. Do we have somebody's asked a question, do we have a governance template? A governance template as in, if you're talking about things like, how do I build governance around Teams governance, for example, stuff like that, or, you know, building a collaboration governance model, we've actually got a webinar on that next week with AvePoint. We're doing a session that deals with governance and adoption in Office 365 and some of the challenges for that. And they have got a governance template that they are deploying into 365, and we're working closely with them as a partner for that. So yeah, Tracy, I'll make sure that if you keep an eye out, but just have a look at our other webinars, because there's one next week at that point. Yeah, very important. I think the governance piece is, although skills can help with a degree of governance, because if people know the right way to do things, then obviously people are less likely to duplicate. But at the same time, things like creating a team and making sure you don't create a team with a similar name that one already exists, you know, that's not always going to work. So we need to put governance in place that controls that team creation process, that's doing some checks and balances in place. And yeah, that webinar next week that we've got with AvePoint has got some really good advice on governance and some tools around that can help you with it. And yes, there are non-profit discounts around that. So the answer to that question is also yes. Yeah, so I'll make sure that that the team will have your registration details, Tracy. So I'll make sure they send you a link to that webinar next week. But yeah, long time in the development, this integration, and we're really chuffed with where we've got to now. It really does bring, for us as a content creators, this alignment with a platform that gives us proper controlled skills programs, whilst also allowing us to maintain the, you know, drop videos into SharePoint, Teams, Yammer, all that kind of stuff for the sort of point in time learning or quick learning or, you know, quick help in association with measured skills and building a platform and an approach around that. We've now got the end-to-end, right? This is really digital skills end-to-end without having to go to the expense of an LMS platform. And so if this is something that you've not thought about yet, it's something that you will find as huge long-term benefit going forward. Anybody else got any questions before we finish? We're just getting to the end of the hour anyway. But yes, look out for the governance one next week. Very, very, very useful webinar that will be. All right, folks. Well, thanks very much for attending. Yeah, take care, everybody. Be safe. Enjoy all this remoteness. I just keep thinking how packed the pubs are going to be when they're allowed to open again. Mind you, having said that, I think there'll be too many people that will have a massive stock of alcohol in their house by then, so they'll have to finish that first. But anyway, yes, thanks everybody for joining. Appreciate your time, and be safe, and yeah, speak to you all again soon. Bye.